Yep, it's gone. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, and welcome to Ahlulbayt TV, where tonight we'll be discussing the final part of our Fatimiyya, the life of Bibi Fatima. Tonight I've been joined by an esteemed scholar, Sayed Mohammed Razavi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to the channel today. Today Sayed and I will be discussing about the life of Bibi Fatima in relation to her infallibility, whether Bibi Fatima, Lady Fatima, may peace and blessings be upon her, was infallible, and how was she infallible. The show is divided into three segments. Segment number one will be discussing about her infallibility, and then we will be discussing about her death. What was the cause of her death, and how was it? How did it affect the Islamic Ummah? Said, can we start discussing about the concept of infallibility? If you could define the concept of infallibility for us, please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, I would like to give my condolences to everyone, especially Imam Mahdi Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajuhu, Imam of the age, for the sad demise and martyrdom of Bibi Fatima Zahra Salatullah Alaiha. These are the days that we are commemorating this tragedy, which was a great loss for the Muslim Ummah and humanity. She is known as one of the noble personalities of not only Islam, of women. I mean, she is the best of the women, and this has been referred into in various Islamic traditions and sources. And the reason that she is referred to with this title is due to her infallibility. We believe that there are 14 ma'sooms, especially the followers of Ahlulbayt alayhi salatu wasalam. They believe that there are 14 ma'sooms, and one of the 14 ma'sooms is Bibi Fatima Zahra salatullah alayha. Infallibility itself is a subject that can be discussed in detail, what infallibility means. And when we understand the meaning of infallibility, then we can understand the position of the person who we are discussing about. Infallibility does not mean that any of these infallibles were forced to do things against their wishes, which is a misconception that exists in amongst some people who think that Imams or Bibi Fatima Zahra Salatullah Alaiha were forced to do some actions against their wishes. If that is the case, that cannot be counted as the reason of superiority, or because if you are forced to do something, reward and punishment doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. But if you know something and then you don't do it, if you know something and you have the control not to do it, that is infallibility. And infallibility does not mean that you are knowledgeable by yourself. I mean, the knowledge that infallibles have is through divine sources, and that is what makes them infallible. Otherwise they would not be called as infallibles. Then you may argue that there are many companions of Prophet Muhammad and many companions of Imam Husayn and holy Imams who were extremely knowledgeable. Yes, there is no doubt, but none of the companions, none of the relatives or people who were educated by holy Imams or people who were educated by Prophet Muhammad can be equal to the level of an infallible. Because they are all they would never reach the level of infallibility because they are not given the whole knowledge.
So would you say that those who are categorized as infallible, are they tempted towards sinning or not? Are they?
Yes, I mean, even there are narrations regarding Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was asked, does shaitan tempt you to commit sin?
Yeah.
And he said, yes. There is. I mean, if temptation were not there, and they wouldn't know how to confront with it.
Yeah.
So they know, and that is the uniqueness of infallibles, that they are more aware of these temptations than anyone else.
Anyone else, yeah.
They are exactly aware that how shaitan is tempting them, and they are exactly aware that what is their responsibility, not because they are being forced, because they are. This is the duty for them to do. For example, I have given this example in many cases. If you were given knowledge that this room is contaminated with uranium, would you come into this room?
No.
No. Why? Even if you're forced, would you come?
No.
No. So imams have the knowledge of haram and halal,
Yeah.
and rewards and punishments and temptations that clearly.
Yeah.
The way you know that entering a room contaminated with uranium is dangerous and
Yeah.
harmful for you. So Imam knows what is in this world, how you could be led into sins, how you could be tempted to do
sin.
wrong things.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't do it.
Yeah. There's a very interesting point that you mentioned about 14 Masooms.
Yeah.
And the fact that only Sayyidah Fatima, Lady Fatima, is the only female Masoom present within the 14. What's so unique about it? Is there any significance behind it? How would we explain that to other schools of thought, as in why is it only Lady Fatima, not anybody else?
Well, again, this discussion goes back to importance of Ahlulbayt alayhi salatu wasalam, and especially the 14 infallibles.
Yeah.
There are narrations from Sunni sources and Shia sources that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created their essence before the creation of anything else.
Yeah.
So if they are the aim and essence of the creation of the whole universe, and they are the most supreme leaders of the whole world,
Yeah.
then of course they are important. Otherwise, there is a narration from Sunni sources that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the creation of infallibles and in al-Zar.
Yeah.
That they were worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala transferred them into physical dimension, and then they came to this world, and they were transferred from prophet to prophet, generation to generation, until they came to the time when they were supposed to come. And then they came and they started to guide the world. And this was the responsibility of every single prophet from the beginning of the creation of humankind, from Adam to Muhammad, to inform their followers that this is the beginning of the world, this is what is going to happen in the world, and how the world is going to come to an end.
Yeah.
This was the responsibility of each single prophet to inform. And that's why if you look at the teachings of any divine religion, you would find the belief in Ma'ad, belief in end of the world, belief in the leaders of the end of the world, Messiah or Imam Mahdi, and the last prophet is given.
Yeah. Again.
And so the information regarding Fatima Zahra sallallahu alaiha was given, and she was supposed to be the mother of the following imams.
Yeah.
So.
Again, as you said, the mother of the following imams. There's a very interesting concept that I was reading today, and it said that some scholars consider the wives of the Prophet as the mothers of the Muslims. Could you say that? Does that mean that all the wives of the Prophet were infallibles? If not, why? Yeah.
None of the wives of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam were infallible, including Hazrat Khadija sallallahu alaiha.
Okay.
We respect her. She was one of the most beloved wife of Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah.
That even created jealousy between
Other
Hazrat
wives,
Aisha and other younger wives, and they used to say, "Why you keep remembering her?" And Prophet used to say, if you knew what Khadija had and what she did, and actually she sacrificed her wealth and everything for the promotion of the mission of Prophet
Islam.
Muhammad
Yeah.
sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So definitely she was the most beloved person to
Yeah.
Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But even though she was the most beloved, most respected, but she is not infallible.
Right. So
So none of the wives of Prophet Muhammad were infallible. But there is no doubt all of the wives have the title of being called mother of the believers.
Mother of the believers.
Why? Because Islam wanted to give us this idea, because none of the wives of Prophet Muhammad are allowed to marry someone else after Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah.
They have the status of mother. None of the believers or followers of or companions of Prophet Muhammad was allowed to look at this. Look at any of the wives of Prophet Muhammad from the point of being married to them.
Right.
So they were not allowed to marry. So they are called mother of the
Believers.
Believers. Yes, some of them did wrong because none of them were infallibles.
Right.
Others didn't do anything. We cannot say they were, because they were not infallible, we can't say they didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
They might have done some wrong. Some did more wrong and some did less wrong.
Less wrong. Again, coming back to the point about Sayyidah Fatima being infallible. If you look at history, the daughter of Lady Fatima was Bibi Zainab, and the sons were Imam Hassan and Imam Husayn, of course. Imam Hassan and Imam Husayn are considered infallibles. Is Lady Zainab part of that as well? And if she is, why isn't she, why hasn't she been considered as part of the 14 Masumin? That's a question that's just come in.
Yeah. She is one of the most knowledgeable family members of Imam Husayn, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ahlulbayt alayhi salatu wasalam. There is no doubt. So is Hazrat Abbas. So is Ali Akbar. So is Ali Asghar. Can you compare any of them with any of us in this world?
No, you can't. Yeah.
But they are not infallibles.
Right.
They are not infallibles. And in Islamic Sharia, especially Islamic jurisprudence, when we are studying Islamic jurisprudence in Hawza Ilmiya Qom or Najaf or any Hawza Ilmiya in the world, the jurists of fuqaha, when they are making a decision about an Islamic ruling, they look at the character, saying, or attestation of an infallible.
Right.
If the person is not infallible, their attestation, their saying, their character does not change any ruling of Islamic jurisprudence.
Right. Yeah.
So yes, Hazrat Zainab Salawatullah Alaiha may be the most knowledgeable lady after Fatima Zahra Salawatullah Alaiha. She may be the most knowledgeable, but she is not infallible. Hazrat Abbas may be the most knowledgeable person, but he is not an imam. He is not a ma'soom.
Yeah.
So that's why they come into different category of a status.
Right.
And their opinion, their action, their saying cannot be classified as an Islamic ruling.
Right. We just have 3 minutes before we go to break. How would you summarize the level of infallibility of Sayyidah Fatima? If you were told to say how high was her level of infallibility, or is there any other woman who could come ever close to Sayyidah Fatima?
Well, there could be many ladies, and infallibility can be achieved by you and me as well.
Right.
But not to the level of a divinely appointed successor or divinely chosen personality like Fatima Zahra Salawatullah Alaiha. We cannot and never be equal. Imam Ali used to say, follow me, but I know you cannot be like me. So we can never be like them. But for example, your knowledge of if this room is contaminated with uranium gives you infallibility against this part of knowledge. So you would never do that.
Right.
So the more you increase your knowledge, you become more infallible.
So that means that
immune. In other words, you become immune.
Immunity. So that because after the break we'll be discussing about the death of Sayyidah Fatima. Before we discuss it and we go to break, how would you define Sayyidah Fatima in one line?
Sayyidah Fatima is unique lady, daughter of Prophet, mother of Imams and wife of an Imam, which no other woman has that
as
status.
ever. Yeah. Thank you very much, Sayed. We will be going on a short break, and after the break, we will be discussing regarding the death of Sayyidah Fatima and how what was the cause of her death, who are the people behind the cause of her death, and what was the impact that it had on the Islamic Ummah. We will be discussing with Sayed after the short break. Please do not leave us. Join us after the break, and we will look into this. If you do have any questions, just a quick reminder, if you do have any questions, if you would like to ask Sayed any questions in regards to Sayyidah Fatima and her infallibility, her life, or any other thing regarding Sayyidah Fatima, please do give us a call on our phone line number that's going to be appearing on your screen, on the bottom of your screen, or you can tweet us at Ahlulbayt TV or MJ Qasim, or even write us on Facebook. Thank you very much, and we will see you after the short break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, and welcome back to Ahlulbayt TV, where today I've been joined by Sayed Mohammed Razavi, who is going to discuss about the life of Sayyidah Fatima. This is our final segment, part 3 of the life of Sayyidah Fatima, where today we are going to discuss about her death and the details about her death. Why was it caused, the reasons behind it, and the impact that it had on the Muslim Ummah. Said, welcome back, and thank you very much for joining us. We'll quickly move to the concept of her death. In a lot of traditions that we have some traditions that her death was occurred on a particular date, like the two to three different traditions. Could you highlight the authenticity of one of the hadith or the tradition, which is the most authentic tradition of her death, and why is there, why do you think is there a lot of contradictions in regards to the traditions? Why do we have 2 to 3 dates about her?
Well, I mean, at the beginning of Islam, with the exception of divine revelations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there was no other method to record the events, and because the facilities, the modern facilities that we have nowadays, they didn't exist. It was about that time when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came with the Holy Quran that paper was invented in China, and people started to write and record things. And even if we look at the first copy of Holy Quran, the first copy of Holy Quran was not collected on one type of material. It was on the pieces of cloth and tablets and pieces of wood and paper and leather. So first copy of Holy Quran was written on a mixture of different items. So it was very difficult to record, and plus because what happened in the previous regarding the previous divine revelations, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised that in Holy Quran, inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun, that we have revealed the whole book of Quran and we will protect it. So there is no guarantee of protecting anything else beside the Holy Quran. Quran was protected, and the challenge goes on, and nobody can interfere with the verses of Holy Quran. And whoever believes that there is another Quran, although we Shia Muslims are being accused by other sects that we believe in a different Quran, we don't believe in a different Quran. Whole Muslim world's Quran is same. Yes, we do believe in tafsir of Quran. We believe that in the tafsir that is done by infallibles, and that's why we don't, as the followers of Ahlulbayt, we don't accept personal opinion in tafsir. We accept the opinion and explanation given by holy imams, because we know that they were infallibles, and Prophet Muhammad, they had direct access to the knowledge that was given by Prophet Muhammad so they know exactly which verse was revealed for what reason, and what are the explanations, and what is the right interpretation and translation of that verse. And that because so much oppression was committed against the holy Imams throughout the history of 12 Imams. If we go through from Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib والسلام, to Imam Mahdi, they had so many enemies, they tried to distort the teachings and everything. So what they did, they tried to protect and safeguard the true interpretation of Holy Quran or tafsir of Holy Quran with themselves. And that's what we believe, and this is what we are being accused by others, that we believe in a different Quran. We don't believe in different Quran. Whoever says there is another Quran beside this is not Muslim.
Right.
Whoever says Prophet Muhammad is not the last prophet is not Muslim. So we as a Shia Muslims believe in these two things. So as far as hadith and narrations are concerned, again, holy Imams والسلام, taught us how to protect the narrations and hadith. And they taught us the sciences which allowed us to transmit the narrations without with making sure that it is not misinterpreted interpreted and misrepresented. So, and that's what in Hawza Ilmiya, Qum and Najaf, or anywhere Shia Hawza Ilmiyas, all the scholars and who go through the Hawza, they have to learn all these traditions, how to protect. Recently there was a survey done in UK. They called 15 people and whispered something in the ear of the first one and asked this first person to whisper the same thing into the second until it reached to the 15th person. And then they asked the 15th person, what did the first person whisper into the ear of the second person? And the 15th person said totally different things. So within a short period of time, you can imagine what happens. I mean, everything gets changed. And especially if you have lots of enemies.
Then everything changes.
And they are willing to distort
everything.
So the possibility of damage is more there. And during those days, nobody used to record.
We never had everything written.
So all we hear and see is through the narrators. And they, because they were constantly attacked by the enemies of teachings of Ahlulbayt, they were more concerned in protecting the words and teachings and sayings of Imams rather than protecting the dates of birth and of other things that will not be questioned on the Day of Judgment.
Said we have a caller online. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum assalam.
How are you doing, brother?
Alhamdulillah, very interesting program.
Alhamdulillah, welcome to Ahlulbayt TV. Would you like to ask a question to the Sayyid, or do you have something to share with us?
Yes, I have something to share, and I also have some question. The thing I have to share is, how does such a momentous historical event be so hidden away from the masses of Muslims? First of all. Secondly, the reason why it is unbelievable, the event that this happens, is that the man who is the husband of this lady, his status and his reputation does not logically make sense that he would just stand by and allow this kind of thing to happen. I think that's why it becomes so unbelievable. And on top of that, I've just come back from Medina, and the people who have instigated this event are buried next to the Prophet. So if you look at it from an outsider's view, the story is just not believable.
Said. In regards to his, he has three very, very valid points, if you go to see. Thank you very much, dear brother, for your valid points. If we break them down into the three main things about how it is a hidden story from all of us today, and the fact that the people involved within this are not even, said about anything about them, and the fact that quite a lot of people are buried next to the Holy Prophet, and Sayyidah Fatima isn't part of it. But before we do discuss about this, could you tell us, the cause of the death of Sayyidah Fatima, in the sense that, because some traditions say it was a natural death, while some say there was a particular incident, as as our brother was referring to. So if you could shed some light into that, please.
Yeah. Yes, as I was explaining earlier, that the incident was hidden for various different reasons. First of all, the method of recording the events
wasn't
not that popular, and the second, she had lots of enemies. Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had lots of enemies who were not even people. There were people who were not willing to listen to him at his deathbed. When he asked for pen and paper, he said he's talking rubbish. Na'udzubillah. So if the people were like that, people were around him. So what can you imagine? So what would happen? This was during his lifetime. They would say that he's talking rubbish, and we should not. And they did not listen to him, and didn't bring the pen and paper for him. And after death, immediately they went against the teachings of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had declared Ali ibn Abi Talib ﷺ in the plains of Ghadir as his rightful successor, and they had come, the same leaders who are buried next to Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, came forward, congratulated Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib ﷺ, said that you have become not only my leader, but the leader of the whole believers. So these are their words. And in action, what they do, they immediately go into Saqifa. They don't even bother to go to the burial of Prophet Muhammad. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, while Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib was busy in preparing the funeral and burial of Prophet Muhammad, these were busy in Saqifa, and appointing and going against the wishes of Prophet Muhammad. So these were the type of leaders who had hijacked the leadership after Prophet Muhammad. So if the world of Islam had gone, if you can imagine when the world of Muslims or Islam went into the hands of these people, so everything was possible. They were not willing to listen to Prophet Muhammad during his lifetime. So after he died, they did everything to undermine his authority, and the best way to undermine his authority was to attack the most beloved persons, like Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib ﷺ, Fatima Zahra sallallahu alaiha, who Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to stand for and respect her and introduced her as the knowledgeable lady. They did not respect her. So this is the reason why people deviated from the right path, because they ignored the teachings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So let's go back to the question about the cause of her death.
The cause of the death is also narrated in various different. There is no doubt that she died with a natural death later on, but what led to this death was some events that took place before that, or several days before that. One of the events that is narrated in the books is instigated, although directly Umar ibn Khattab was not involved, but he was behind all of this. He encouraged people to go forward and bring Ali ibn Abi Talib out of his house, and they even dragged him out of the house. And the way they did it, they burnt the door of the house of Ali ibn Abi Talib and Fatima Zahra sallallahu alaiha, according to famous narrations, is that was behind the door, and the door fell on her ribs. And this is also narrated that she was pregnant, and Hazrat Fatima Zahra sallallahu alaiha. And during those days, the doors were built very heavily and with thick wood and everything. There was nothing like plywood.
Yeah, right.
So you could just burn like a piece of paper or something. So these were heavily built doors, and they burned the door and pushed the door, and that fell onto the ribs of Hazrat Fatima Zahra, Salatullah alayha, and she was reportedly pregnant, and she miscarried her child. And the great thing regarding the personality of Fatima Zahra is that she kept quiet.
Wow.
She did not even let her husband find out about the pain and difficulty, because she knew that how he was suffering already from the pain that Muslim Ummah, so-called Muslim Ummah, was giving it to him. As a loyal wife, she didn't want to add in the pain of her husband. And she didn't disclose it until Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, according to narrations, when he was washing Fatima Zahra Salatullah alayha's body according to Islamic rituals. He suddenly noticed the bruises and the broken ribs, and he screamed and started to cry. And people heard his cry while he was washing the body of.
Which wasn't, which you could say, which wasn't something very normal from Imam Ali to.
Even in, I mean, she was very young. So how can a young person die like that? Obviously, there was a reason behind it. And the reason was these atrocities that were committed against her. Although they can swear on Quran and say that, oh, I did not personally kill her. And some of the followers of them, they do that. No, he did not personally kill her. Yes, we agree that. But he was the instigator behind all of these atrocities, and which led into this action. And that action, although they may claim that we had nothing against Fatima Zahra Salatullah alayha, we wanted Ali out of the house, and we wanted his hands in allegiance, and didn't have anything against her. But who is the person who suffered? It was Fatima Zahra Salatullah alayha.
That's, there's a very interesting thing that comes up here in regards to, why Sayyidah Fatima opened the door, and why she stood for Imam Ali. And a lot of people say it is a right of every believer to stand to protect the Imam of your time. So
she did not open the door. She knew what was going to happen. She stood behind the door close to keep it shut. And when they couldn't open the door, they couldn't persuade her to open the door, they decided to burn the door. Because, as I said, the doors were heavy
material,
and they couldn't have been pushed the way they were pushing it. So they burnt the door, and then the burning door fell on her.
And that's when she injured
her.
We actually had a caller who's asked a question saying, because we have discussed the way the atrocities fell upon Lady Fatima, may peace and blessings be upon her, how do we have any references in regards to this in other schools of thought books?
We have.
Okay.
We have both Sunni and Shia also. Although one of the tragedies that is happening now is that, and I have personally faced that with some of the other sect believers, they are changing the narrations. So we have to be very careful to keep the authentic books written by their own scholars, the old copies of them. This is what some of the followers of Christianity and Judaism also did. I mean, like a few years ago, I helped a Christian leader to become Muslim, and I asked him why did he want to become Muslim, and he told me about his research, that what he had done. According to his research, Bible was compiled more than 70 years after Jesus. And so you can imagine how many changes would have taken place. So in the similar way, regarding Islamic teachings and narrations, there are hands who are trying to distort the Islamic history especially the enemies of Islam, they are trying, and those enemies of Islam are not outsiders, they are within. I mean, the sects that are there, they are trying to somehow delete the authentic narrations that prove some, that can be presented as evidence.
Right.
And they're continuously changing. So we have to be aware, we have to try to protect not only our books,
but also the other
their
books
as well.
Okay.
So it can be a source of reference for our future generation.
As we're discussing about the death of Lady Fatima, and we came across this incident of the door where the door was burnt and it fell. What would you say, according to our traditions, was the death of Lady Fatima caused because of this particular atrocity, or was it caused by a natural death?
No, it was because of the atrocity. There is no doubt. But again, because they are feeling guilty, they keep saying that no, she died natural death. But how can a young person die for? I would invite them to think why a young person like her could die for a natural death. There must have been some reason, and this is one of the reasons that she faced. She faced the atrocities directly, and she was injured, and she was suffering from the injury and pain that she was going through. She miscarried her child. Even nowadays, if you miscarriage a child, you could die. And we have modern facilities and other things. So who caused the miscarriage? Whatever the reason caused the miscarriage led into eventual death of her. The broken ribs are the reason for death, although she didn't die immediately, but after a few days or a few weeks.
Coming to that point, a lot of traditions that I have come across, they say that the time span between the death of the Prophet and the death of Sayyidah Fatima was around 70 days, 75 days, or some say 90 days.
90 days. There are two narrations, 70 days or 90 days.
So that's means,
why we have two Ayyam-e-Fatimiyya.
So that means after 3 months, so within those 3 months, this atrocity did befall upon her, and we could say, what do we have any authentic traditions that say that there was a particular time after this atrocity that she passed away, or?
Well, the whole thing goes back to the incident of Ghadir. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib as the rightfully appointed successor by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, according to divine revelations that he had received, and the verses of Holy Quran are very clear about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also told Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that we know what is bothering you, but if you do not complete this mission, you have not completed. If you don't do this, you will not be completing the mission, which was appointment of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. So the whole thing started from Ghadir. And these people who did not like Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam to be the leader of the Muslim Ummah. So what they did, they waited for Prophet Muhammad's death. So, and this also proves that these 90 days or 70 days, whatever you accept, were extremely difficult on Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. As an Imam, as a holy Imam, he had the responsibility to defend his right. Not because of his personal interest or gain or benefit. He is an Imam. He has to defend the right that he has. So he was defending his right. He was constantly arguing or telling them that, look, I am the person who was appointed by Ali ibn. You are the person who came and congratulated me. So, and it was a very short period of time. They could not resist. So they chose to use force. And that is the force, and that is the result of that force.
Because if you look at it, Ghadir was Zilhaj. And then you come to Muharram and Safar. Safar is when we lost the Holy Prophet. And then you have Rabiul Awal, Rabiul Akhir, and then you have Jamadi Awal. And that's within the 3 months where,
and these were the extremely difficult months for Imam Ali and Fatima Zahra.
Both of them.
Because they were constantly under pressure from every point of view.
So we have final 2 minutes before we go on a short break and then return to discuss about the impact that her death had on Islam, and why her death was kept, why her funeral was even kept a secret from a lot of people. But before we go on break, would you say that and confirm with authentic hadith and traditions that the death of Sayyidah Fatima was not a natural death?
Yeah, it was not a natural death.
It was not a natural death.
She died due to a cause.
Yeah.
That cause may have taken several weeks or several months.
Yeah.
Or several days, whatever. I mean, within 70 days.
Yeah.
I don't exactly remember which was the date when the door was burned.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of
the atrocity.
If we count the psychological pressure, and because that also creates stress and other things.
Yeah.
But people usually don't die with the stress. Physical injuries cause death. So after that physical injury, she died.
So basically,
she was killed.
She was killed.
She was murdered.
She was murdered, you could say. There is another thing that comes up with it. If she was killed and she was murdered, why aren't there, the murderers or the killers, again, as the brother pointed out, why aren't they being brought into question? In regards to, okay, as Shias do believe in our traditions that yes, she was murdered, she was killed, and it wasn't a natural death, do authentic books from other schools of thought confirm that this was not a natural death?
Those who are not biased
and
those who love Ahlulbayt, there are lots of Sunni Muslims who love Ahlulbayt, and I've heard their speeches, the scholars speaking and crying and acknowledging. They accept the Khalifas as Khalifas.
Right.
And they accept that they are not infallibles.
Okay.
But they accept them as there is a Khalifas in result of Shura, I mean the meeting that took place. But at the same time, they do say that she was wrongly killed.
Right. So we could conclude into this question that Sayyidah Fatima was killed.
Yeah, she was martyred.
Because of...
she's shaheed.
She's a shaheed. Because at that particular moment, she was also protecting the rightful leader of the time.
She was protecting, which she was doing, which is a duty of every single Muslim.
To do that.
To defend your values and honor and respect and property and family.
Thank you very much, Ed. We will now be going on a short break, and we will be returning for the final segment of the final part of the life of Lady Fatima, where we will be discussing why her death was kept as a secret from all of us, and her funeral, and where she is buried, and also the impact that it had on the Muslim community. Thank you very much for being with us, and we will see you after the short break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, and welcome back to Ahlulbayt TV for our final segment of our final show on the life of Lady Fatima. May peace and blessings be upon her. Today I've been joined by Sayed Mohammed Razavi, who is going to discuss about the death of Sayyidah Fatima and how it had an impact on the Islamic society. Sayed, welcome back. As we were discussing about how the death occurred, and where you say that it was not a natural death, but she was killed. She was a shaheed, she was a martyr. After her death, where of course the funeral preparations were done and the burial preparations were done, it is reported in a few traditions that Lady Fatima asked Imam Ali not to disclose, her burial arrangements, and no one should, attend her funeral and stuff. Is there a particular reason behind it? Why is it that the burial of such a high, personality in the society, of course, she was a daughter of the Prophet. Why would why would her death be hidden and her funeral be hidden from us?
Yeah, I mean, not only Hazrat Fatima Zahra salatullah alayha, even there are narrations regarding Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, that his burial place was hidden until 5th or 6th Imam. All the holy Imams used to secretly go and do ziyaras of the grave of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. And then it became disclosed when around Imam Muhammad Baqir or Imam Jafar Sadiq's period, it became openly known to public, because around that time things had become slightly easier, not because they had given up. No, the enemies of Ahlulbayt alayhi first tried to get rid of them. They tried to distort the history of Islam. They tried to get rid of the teachings of Ahlulbayt alayhi. They tried to propagate anti-Ahlulbayt propaganda from them. Basically, the scholars were paid to give lectures against Ahlulbayt alayhi all this period. So that included Hazrat Fatima Zahra sallallahu alaiha, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu. Imam Ali's name was not even allowed to be mentioned on the minbar. So you could imagine what a difficult time Ahlul Bayt and followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi went through. So Fatima Zahra sallallahu alaiha was part of this atrocity, and Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, as the Imam, most knowledgeable person after Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was aware of what is coming after him. So in order to, and he knew that what people of that mentality could do. So therefore, there are two reasons. First of all, when Hazrat Fatima Zahra sallallahu alaiha was injured, she used to talk to her husband, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, and according to one narration, she gave wasiyah that do my funeral at night, and don't disclose it to people. Because she had fear that they might do something to her grave and body and steal her body or something like that. So funeral was done at night. Others were not informed. The funeral was secret. And then Imam Ali ibn Talib, in order to confuse people where she was buried, he created fake graves to mislead them where she was buried. At least according to some narrations 7, and some according to other narrations more. So when we go to Medina, we do ziyarah. One of the ziyarah is done right next to the grave of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Apparently there was, because Hazrat Fatima Zahra sallallahu alaiha has a house, because Prophet Muhammad is buried in the house. And wives of Prophet Muhammad had houses around it. So Hazrat Fatima, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib's door used to be open towards the mosque. And according to one narration, she was buried in the same house where she was living. So up to few years, I have been going for Hajj for many years. There used to be a high risen area for no reason, right behind the grave of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and people used to go and sit there and recite dua and Quran. And recently they have even removed that. That area has totally been demolished, and it has become a prayer area. There is a possibility that she is there, and there is a possibility that she is buried in Baqi. And in Baqi there were several areas that were marked by Imam Ali ibn Talib to confuse people. So between Baqi and the whole house of Prophet Muhammad is the area.
Somewhere there, we could say.
Somewhere there.
So we don't have an authentic response in regards to where it is. Would you say that?
Authentic, I mean, because Imam Ali, as an infallible Imam, kept it secret. So if he kept it secret, then his sons, Imam Hassan and Imam Husayn, would have followed the advice of their father.
During the funeral services of Lady Fatima, do we have any authentic hadith indicating who attended her funeral?
Well, I mean, it was a secret funeral. So it was definitely family members like Hassan, Hussein, Fatima Zahra, and his close family members. Maybe some of the very close companions and trustworthy companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam.
So
it wasn't a public funeral.
It was something done very privately,
yeah, very privately.
as you said. There's one thing that that not only me but a lot of people have noticed, and is the fact that the number of quotes and the number of traditions about Sayyidah Fatima, of her reporting various incidents, is at a very minimum level. I mean, we do not have access to a lot of data and literature from her. There's a caller who's just called in and asked, where can they obtain literature by Sayyidah Fatima?
First of all, we have to look. She had a very short
lifespan of years. Yeah.
During this short life, she gave birth, got married, went through the problems that her father faced, went through the problems that her husband faced, and the difficulties of migration from Mecca to Medina, and then all these atrocities and upheavals. During this period, several battles took place.
Right.
She was one of the active ladies who would take care of the injured, and so she had gone through a lot in a short period of time. And that is the period of time that it was also impossible. I mean, people did not give much importance to the ladies as well. So she may have been victim of these these kind of attacks that deliberately. I mean, how can suddenly Aisha has so many narrations,
right,
and Hazrat Fatima Zahra Salatullah has nothing?
Less traditions,
So this shows that there must have been something against her.
So there must be, we could say, there must be something wrong in between,
or distorted, and definitely holy imams have all the teachings, and the reason why some Sunni Muslims accuse us of believing in another Quran is maybe the collection of what Hazrat Fatima Zahra Salatullah Alaiha said as a ma'asuma and infallible.
At that particular time.
And that is not Quran, and that is Sahifa. Sahifa means written work or narrations by Fatima Zahra Salatullah Alaiha. So the holy imams have
a collection
that, and they use that as a source book to guide us and to keep us on the right path. Inshallah, Imam Mahdi Ajallallah Ta'ala Faraju would come up with those narrations.
Inshallah. Said we have a caller online. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome dear brother on Ahlulbayt TV, and we're discussing about the life of Lady Fatima. Please do go ahead.
The question is for the Sheikh regarding the land of Fadak.
Right.
Can you give us a bit more background on why it was gifted to Bibi Fatima, and who actually snatched the land away from her?
Right. Thank you very much for your question there. Sayed, if you could highlight.
That's another issue that is related to Hazrat Ali ibn Abi Talib ﷺ, and then according to narrations it was given to Hazrat Fatima Zahra Salatullah Alaiha. We should analyze this from a political point of view. For the success of any government, you need financial backing, you need connection to divine sources if it is a divine government which is trying to lead the system. And the enemies of Islam were aware of this importance, that if Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib has access to financial resources, he would be successful. And Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib also was aware, as a very expert politician, he knew what is needed for the promotion of the path of Ahlulbayt in future. And also considering that sadaqah was not permissible for Ahlulbayt, they needed some kind of connection to resources. So this was given, this was a, war booty. And part of war booty goes to Ahlulbayt alayhi salatu wasalam, not because they are superior, they are some superior or something like that. Or it is given for a reason. The reason is for promotion of Maktab Ahlulbayt alayhi salatu wasalam. And that Fadak, according to some narration, it was a whole Syria or
there's a lot of emphasis about
big
the land.
piece of land.
So before we continue to that, we have another caller online. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you doing, dear brother?
My sincere salam to you and the Sayed Mohammed Razavi.
Thank you.
Just two brief questions pertaining to Lady Fatima, peace be upon her. After the demise of the Prophet, peace be upon him, which of the wives was she closest to?
Right.
And who did she leave the two Imams to be raised by? And did any of the first three Imams write about this particular episode, especially after the death of peace be upon him, those couple of months?
Yeah.
Death of Prophet
the
or
first three Imams write anything about that, those specific months?
All right,
if you can please give the references.
Could you, Sayed would like you to give a bit more details on your third question. If you could repeat that, please.
Right. Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, Imam Hassan and Husayn radiallahu anhu, did any of them write anything about those final several months after the demise of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the events that occurred to Lady Fatima, peace be upon her? Did any of those Imams write, in other words, did her husband or did her two sons write anything? Are there any authentic writings from them about that?
Right. Thank you very much for your questions. And Sayed, if you could look into them, please.
Yeah. Well, I think he was referring to the wife after Fatima Zahra.
So basically, the three questions are that after the death of the Prophet, which of the wives of the Prophet was Lady Fatima closest to, and second question is which of the wives of the Prophet did contribute a lot in bringing up Lady Fatima after the death of course, Lady Khadija. And the third one is in regards to whether whether Imam Ali and Imam Hassan and Imam Husayn did write anything in regards to the event of the the burning of the door which befell upon their mother.
Yeah, we have received this information through the reliable sources, through holy Imams, and not only Shia sources. There are Sunni references as well. Actually, I was looking at in the break for the references. I found several references regarding the martyrdom of Hazrat Fatima Zahra salawatullah alayha, and there are at least 15 different references here. One of the most famous Sunni scholars that has quoted this event is let me find out, Ibn Qutayba. Yeah, Ibn Qutayba, which is the author of Sihah Sitta. And then there is a reference from in Tarikh Tabari from Ibn Jurair at-Tabari, and then Ibn Shayba, and then Allama Mas'udi in Muruj al-Zahab, then Abdul Bir in al-Isti'ab, and so on. There are at least 15.
So basically, in regards to the third question, that means that we
wouldn't have received this without
hadn't they said it. So if you go to the first question that says which of the wives of the Prophet was she closest to after the death of the Prophet?
After the death of the Prophet, I mean, she didn't discriminate with anyone.
Yeah.
And all of the wives who were living, of course, her mother, Hazrat Khadija, Salatullah alayha, passed away. Then after her mother's death, according to well brought up as Ma'asuma, she would have respected all the wives of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as equal to her mother, and without any discrimination. And what happened, especially with in relation to Hazrat Aisha and Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib was after death of Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah.
And she was not supposed to get out of the house, and she was not supposed to disobey the Imam of the age.
Yeah.
And she disobeyed the instructions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it is unbelievable that as an infallible lady and as a wife of infallible person, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, and as the mother of two infallible children, Imam Hasan and Imam Husayn, and as the daughter of an infallible prophet, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she would have disregarded Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib's action in relation to Aisha. So she would have also disassociated herself with the actions, although Aisha was wife of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But when someone who is not infallible does wrong, an infallible person will definitely make a stand.
So the second question in regards to who played a great role in the upbringing of Lady Fatima after the death of Lady Khadija.
I would say all of the wives, according to their ability and love, and because none of them were infallibles. Some of them even showed their grudges against Hazrat Khadija during the lifetime. So if they could show their grudges against Khadija, some of them would have even showed their grudges against Lady Fatima Zahra, salatullah alayha. So yes, I mean, she had connection with. I don't have exact and accurate name. And I don't want to say anything that cannot be,
that's gonna be
backed up with reference.
So we could then say that Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, and Imam Husayn, may peace and blessings be upon them, they all did have a record of the incident of the burning of the door. Then,
without that, we wouldn't
have got to this.
Because the beauty of the Shia Islamic teaching is our sources of narrations are all
from the infallible.
It has to go back to infallible. If it doesn't go to infallible, then which is Prophet Muhammad, we just throw it away.
It's disregarded.
Disregarded.
Okay. We're approaching the final few minutes of our show. The final 5 minutes. What would you say would have been the impact on the Islamic Ummah after the death of the death of Lady Fatima? I mean, because she was of such great high personality, and the fact that a lot of women did look upon her, did it have a lot of adverse effects on the Islamic Ummah at that time?
Her sad demise?
Yes.
I mean, she was a noble personality. She was infallible. She was the person who directly had received knowledge from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And she was the wife of Imam Ali. So the Muslim Ummah could have benefited more from her. Within this short period of time, she gave excellent khutbahs and sermons. And those khutbahs are narrated. And when Fatima Zahra salatullah alayha used to defend the right of her husband, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, it used to remind people of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that how she was knowledgeable, she was eloquent, she was not an uneducated lady. If we believe that in her infallibility, she was the source of knowledge and source of inspiration for whole Muslim Ummah, not only ladies, the whole Muslim Ummah. Her lifestyle was an example. The way she, in her short period of lifetime, looked after her children. She was an excellent mother. She was an excellent daughter. She was an excellent wife. She never requested anything from her husband, which could put him under burden.
So we could say that from the life of Lady Fatima, not only do females have things to learn, but she was a role model for the whole of humanity.
She is a role model for not only women,
but also
whole humanity.
So we have our final 2 minutes. How would you sum up the life of Lady Fatima from her birth to her death? What would you say was the most unique characteristic that she had, and is the most unique characteristic that you admired about her, about Sayyidah Fatima, that made you think that she was on another level compared to anybody else?
There are two famous sentences that are known by all Shia Muslims, and all followers and lovers of Ahlulbayt from Ahlul Sunnah as well. That Fatima Zahra salatullah alayha in Hadith Qissa is introduced from Fatima. Hum Fatimatu wa Abuha wa Ba'luha wa Banuha. And who are the people under the cloak? Fatima, her father, her husband, and her two sons.
Yeah.
And the other famous sentence that all Shia Muslims and lovers of Ahlulbayt from Ahlul Sunnah are familiar with is when they want to pray and they believe in intercession. They pray and make dua. بحق فاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها. That I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that for the sake of Fatima and her father and her husband and the two sons, accept my prayers and dua. So we intercede to Hazrat Fatima Zahra at the end of this show and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that may Allah through her intercession help us and succeed.
I'm into that. Thank you very much, Sayed, for sharing your knowledge with us today. I'm sure our viewers around the world, globally, you have benefited from this particular show today, and of course the 3 shows that have been going on about the life of Fatima. It is now time to say goodbye to everyone. We will be ending our show of Lady Fatima, and we hope that you did benefit a lot from our shows. Should you require to watch replays of them, you will be available online to you in a few days. And as the world celebrates Mother's Day tomorrow, we wish you to take a lot of lessons from who was the most unique mother in the society. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.